So are you ready for tonight? So let's start. But I want to start with something, okay? I just want to ask you, by show of hands, how many of you guys have the opportunity to be in the cruise ship? Okay, a few of you. Don't worry, nobody's is getting out. Everybody's going to be included in my message tonight. But I want to start with that because one of my first experience when I went into a cruise ship with my family, and something that caught my attention was like the first night in the cruise ship, there was one of the staff from the cruise ship that tell the people around them, let me ask you something. You make sure that you wash, be synchronized to the time of the ship. That way, when you go offshore in the different destinations, you know what time you have to come back to the ship. Because if you go to offshore and you get into the time of the island or wherever you are, you're going to miss the ship. And I said, well, that makes sense. And then he asked, how many of you guys have cameras and iPhones with you? Well, of course, everybody raised their hands. I said, good. Because if you miss the ship, you're going to have a nice picture from the ship in the horizons. So I say, okay, that was a fair warning. Don't you think it was a fair warning, right? But let me tell you something. Next day, about, the time that the ship is, picking up to leave, I was in the balcony with my wife, and then it became like a cruise ship Olympics games because everybody that was in the balcony is looking down and you see people running in the last minute trying to get into the cruise ship because, they're moving all the ramp from the cruise ships. And you see, and everybody, every time that somebody was running, we were clapping, yeah, come on, you're going to do it, you're going to do it, yeah. Kind of like energizing, to get in time. But a few times I seen people left behind, and you can tell that was because the lack of warning, because a warning was given. It was by the choice of those people not to be in time, But for those of you that haven't been in the cruise ship, let me give you this example. And I think, how many of you guys have flew before? Most of you. That's great because now you're going to be with me in this example. Sometimes you get to the airport and you're sitting and as you're waiting for your flight to get ready, you may hear something like this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your final boarding call for passengers Robert and William. Final boarding call, book on flight 372, Destiny, Kansas City. Please proceed to gate 3 immediately. The final checks are being completed. As the captain, we ordered the doors of the aircraft to close in approximately 5 minutes. Señoras y señores, ese es su pasaje. No. You get the message. Amen. There is something that, we take for granted. And something that we have to understand, and that person that is left behind don't understand, is when after these 5 minutes pass and the aircraft shut his door, and when the jetway pull away from the airplane, even if you are standing on that window, in the big glass window in the airport, you can see your plane right there. They won't let you go in there. And that's what my message is called tonight, the lost call. Because sometimes we are waiting and waiting and waiting for our time. Be ready to come to God. God is being calling us and calling us and calling us. But it's going to be a time in our life, in this life, maybe in the next generation, maybe in this generation, nobody knows when. But he said there's going to be a time when the door is going to close. And if you didn't heed to his warning, we may be left behind. So this message tonight is not a message of judgment. It's a message for myself. It's a message for you. It's a message for the new believer. It's a message for the church. But it's a message for everybody. Can you say amen? There is no secret for anyone what is happening around us today. It's like every week something else happened. Something that you think 20 years ago, this would have never happened. No in this nation, no in my lifetime. Just as I was driving to church today, there was a vehicle in front of my vehicle, and I'm looking through the windshield, something that you left over from being a police officer. You always look, scan. And I see the father, there's a child in the back seat. It's probably, I would say, less than 7 years old. And I see the child like punching the father that is holding the steering wheel. We are in the red light. And my eyes don't believe what I'm seeing. But that's not enough. Now the kid is like getting his back and he start kicking his father in the face.